already introduced yourselves?
No, no.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, there's a couple more that I'm sure are struggling in, so. But just want to say real quick, thank you so much to, Marty and their group. They are with Western and Southern Financial Group, so I'll let them tell you a little bit about what they do, but they're some of our favorite people in the world, and you guys should get to know them. So thank y'all for breakfast. We appreciate you.
Yes. So thanks to April and y'all having us in today.
Yeah, you're good. You're good.
Okay.
So I'm Marty, and this is Christy. Like April said, we're from Western and Southern, both in Cary. Has anybody ever heard of Western and Southern?
We got one taker.
Okay, so yeah, when I started at Western Southern, I hadn't heard of it either. But a little bit about the company. We're headquartered out of Cincinnati, Ohio. We've been around since 1888. So well established, over 130 years. So we are a mutual holding company, and we
What mutual holding company means basically is that we're owned by our policyholders. So we're not trading on exchange. We have, so we don't have to make really risky business decisions, like quarterly. So we're just a really stable.
We invest in long-term investments in a well-diversified portfolio. So yeah, that's a little bit about the company. Again, as far as life insurance, people look at life insurance in about 6 different areas over several times a year. Over several, like a lifetime, 6 times. So one thing is getting married. You're combining your resources, buying a home. That would be like home protection, mortgage protection, starting a family, making sure your kids are protected. As far as kids these days, they have insurance or life insurance with their company, but these days people move jobs 5, 6, 10 times, whatever. So a life insurance policy for a child, just really inexpensive, but it would follow them for the rest of their life if they move jobs. Another area is college education, trying to save and have a college education, pre-retirement, retirement, making sure that you have a legacy, that your income is protected. So those are some of the areas that people reevaluate their life insurance. Ways that we can help with the life insurance is term insurance. Term is for a certain amount of time and for a certain flat fee as far as the premium or face amount. Does it change? Then whole life has the opportunity to build cash value. Some of our products have dividends, build dividends. They are in the market or mirror the market. The other thing is a critical illness policy that can be attached to a whole life policy, or it can be separate. The critical illness covers heart attack, cancer, stroke, a renal failure, and a transplant, organ transplant. So that's, and then the other is we have a universal policy, and all this is kind of in your book or packet that I passed out.
So we'll talk about the stages of life. I'll give you this one. Talk about the stages of life. This is what she's talking about, starting out. So it's in there.
Yeah,
Those are us.
so.
I'm being banned over here.
Yes,
I'm
she's
just
not
being national
being-
cover around.
This is
One more
Kristen.
time. And this is about actual products. Okay, so if you really want to
Yeah.
break down, this is the product guide. But go ahead.
And they would just call you guys, I guess, set up an appointment, you
Yes.
would meet with them, just almost like you would set up with a financial planner and or
Exactly.
insurance agent or anything like
We'll
that.
get to that.
Right.
So that's exactly. That's
Right,
So
yeah,
this-
so, yeah, and then the other is the universal policy. It's very flexible as far as the premium. It's flexible in the face amount you can add to that. It builds really good cash value and dividends. So, and then the other thing is we offer a financial plan. It's a complimentary, and I know some places don't, they charge for it. So ours is complimentary. It's a roadmap to where you are now and then your goals of where you want to be. And it would just tell you how you get there.
Hello.
And that.
I got a question. How about long-term healthcare insurance? Which I'm a long way from that, right?
Yeah, okay.
Yes, we can do long-term care. We also can Medicare supplement. We can also do like most of our life insurance, well, all of our life insurance policies have kind of a long-term care rider built into them. Whereas, which is actually a lot more cost effective because you don't have to pay for it unless you use it. Like my grandmother, had a long-term care policy for over 40 years and then she passed away within a week. So all that money, they don't refund you for that. So, so all that money kind of just, she lost it. But if it was built into your life insurance policy, then you wouldn't have to pay for it. It's just it's what with Western Southern, it's a free rider as long as you're healthy enough to get standard. It's standard issue because long-term care is pretty hard to qualify for. It's actually harder to qualify for long-term care than it is life insurance. So, anyways, it's a free rider built in that you could access up to 60% of the death benefit as a living benefit. So let's say you had $1 million policy and you got a terminal illness or a chronic illness, you could access up to say $600,000 of that without having to, pay for a long-term care policy. You can just use it if you needed it. Mhm.
That's kind of it in a nutshell.
So this is the financial analysis, right?
Yes,
So it's just colorful. It literally breaks down for every phase of life. Now, you don't have to, everybody's not gonna need to go through the full, financial analysis. Maybe they're not worried about education. This is gonna break down like, every college, how much is gonna be now and how much is gonna be, in-state, out-of-state, for every college in the country. So but you might not need that piece, so retirement. It would break down, currently what you're, based on your current income, your projected future earnings, how much you're gonna be earning possibly by the time you get to retirement, how much of that are you gonna really need in retirement? So it's just a very full, thorough analysis, depending on, what phase you are in your life. We can do the whole thing, or we can, we can always just, but it's free. And financial advisors, which, we have, on our team, we are, and they're gonna charge $500 to $2,000. And a lot of times, that's how they make a fee off of it, but so they're not as motivated to actually help you take care of the problems that they uncover your plan. So we do it for free because it's our process, and we want to make sure, that if we go through this process with you and you get, it that, hopefully we'll get the first shot to fill in the gaps in your plan. So.
Thank you again for
Yes,
breakfast.
Thanks for having me.
If we need a few more of those,
I'm gonna run.
we're going to see if we can find a couple more.
Yeah.
I pulled that out of yours. Y'all enjoy the breakfast and a couple more. Happy selling. Okay, thank you.
Timothy, I'm gonna scan this one into your file, so we'll start with that.
Okay. Can you send it to Lana? She's sending another appraisal that she wants to start with. All right, guys, we're gonna get started here in just a moment.
Okay. I'm gonna make some copies in just a second, so everybody can kind of have a worksheet to go off of. And then our guest speaker this morning is Mr. Van Jones. For those of y'all that don't know him, he's probably one of the premier appraisers in multiple
I appreciate that.
in multiple counties. I'm not gonna lie, he's been around. His office is actually in Pine Level, but he goes far and wide. He does VA appraisals. He does pretty much all of it. So he's one of those, if I see appraisal request come through and it's got his name on it, I'm excited. He knows what he's doing. He's very thorough. And he also, talks with the agents and, help me if he's having issues. He's one of those that'll reach out and say, kind of help me figure out how you got to where you are. So he's been a huge help to me and my team through the years. So I wanted to have him in to help you guys, help you understand when something comes through, what does this mean? Why did they say that about my property? Or, I thought it was worth this. And we've got a couple examples. He'll kind of talk you through some of the main points to look for in an appraisal. And then we'll go through kind of some scenarios as well. So without further ado, I'm going to make copies real quick.
All right, thank you very much for the time.
Yes, sir.
Which I've been
Well
accused of
deserved.
a lot.
Well deserved, Mr. Jones.
Where's the hot seat at?
Right there.
Right
in
up
front.
here.
And Timothy's working on getting your both of your appraisals pulled up.
Cool, sounds
Did you
good.
send it to me yet?
Doing it right now.
Okay.
That's what I meant.
So you gonna put it up on the screen?
Yes, when she
Do
sends
you mind if I
it to me.
stand up side of it or?
Yeah, you can stand.
All right, cool.
Let me adjust this back just a tad for everyone that's watching on Zoom.
It's called eyesight.
Anybody have any just generic questions off the bat while we're getting this set up?
I have a ton.
Okay.
First of all, if I say a word and you don't understand it, it's just one Johnson County accent. So raise your hand and I'll try to tell you what it means.
When you're doing comps for an appraisal, how far back do you usually look for as a rule of thumb?
We're used to 12 months, but the way the market has been in the last year, anywhere from 6 months or less. We try to use 3 months now because, it's changing so much within 30 days. You could have a house sell for $100,000 today and tomorrow it's gone up 5%, is worth 115 the next day. But rule of thumb, 12 months and work your way down.
Okay. 12 months or less. When is it acceptable to look outside of the neighborhood for a comp?
When you cannot find anything similar within the subdivision, compare it to it.
I have one.
Sure.
We're doing a lot of new construction. At what point are you able, new construction, you almost always have to have 2 appraisals because it's way too hard because we're sometimes not finished until the day before closing, right? Like there's something that's missing. So you do the initial appraisal and then you go back for a final, typically on new construction.
Yes, but the final is not an appraisal, it's just a final inspection.
Fair enough.
And the buyer gets charged for
They
more.
do
Correct.
get, yes, they do get charged a
Yeah.
double, but here's my question, when do you when do you want to go for that initial appraisal? At what stage in construction, how complete do you need it to be before it's time for you to go?
It all depends, if it's proposed construction, of course, I need plans and specs. If it's in a subdivision where a house just sold right side of it, it's pretty much gonna have the same specifications.
So brand new
It-
subdivision might be a little bit different, but if we're in a subdivision, it's got several lots and we've already sold a few of those floor plans, you don't care if it's just the foundation is in, you still can get the.
Oh,
order.
yeah.
Because the
That's
lenders
what
are
I-
on us all the time, can we order the appraisal, can we order the appraisal, am I wrong? Those of you doing the
Yes.
construction? And we're like, I don't know, because I don't know how much the appraiser, how far along the appraiser needs.
Well,
it to
that's
be.
when I call you. If I go out and there's a foundation there, I'll call you, or I'll figure out who the builder is and try to get the plans and specs to
Okay,
it. And I
and
can still
will
do the
most
appraisal.
appraisals do that, appraisers do that, or will some of them
Uh,
say if it's not sheet rock, I don't wanna go?
I've heard some instances where appraisal will not appraise.
Yeah, I just
Like
had
that.
one where they didn't go with what's final.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But that's 2 days before.
And
Yeah,
what-
that's
yeah,
crazy,
and
the like
and that's what
closing.
happens. What happens is it holds up the closing process.
It does.
Yeah, and that's when the lender needs to put the heat on whoever in the appraiser is. So look, we need to get this appraiser done, make it settle to completion.
That's what most often is done, and I'm wondering, because I ran into this where it was a lender who was refusing, or a buyer who was refusing to pay for the second trip charge, and that's why they were only gonna do one, and I finally was like, that's not gonna work, you're gonna have to pay for a second one, but okay.
I had one that wouldn't even go in before it was clean.
Yeah, they wanted
Oh,
100%. I've
They
had
did
that
only-
done.
Yeah, I've seen.
And clean, there would be nobody else in the house.
Hmm.
So it pushed our closing 2 weeks.
Wow.
Really?
Now, can they do that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's, yeah, that's going a little bit too far, but yes, they can.
They run the show.
Me personally, if it's new construction, when you go in and you see where the blue tape is everywhere, or whatever it may be, and it still needs cleaning, I'll call it when it's complete, because I know it's gonna get done. I know the building's gonna get done.
So you said you'll just move on, because you know.
Oh,
that it's
yeah,
going to- the
exactly.
roofing's
I'll
gonna
give
come
it
off.
a clear
You
final.
check the appliances, you know the landscaping's there. you're gonna
Exactly.
roll on.
That's
Okay.
correct. Yeah. Is it marketable? That's,
If what?
is it marketable? That's the way I look at it.
All right, so it's more of a, because here's what I have been doing is when it's real early in construction, I call the appraiser once the appointment comes through
Uh-huh.
and let them know, hey, here's where we are in construction, do you still want to go? Is that a pretty safe practice, you think? Is there anything
It
wrong
could
with
be.
that?
It could be, because you let an appraiser know that maybe he needs some information from
Yeah.
plans and specs, or, what's going into the house.
Okay.
If it's VA requires what they call customer preference stage. If it's that customer preference stage, which is more or less is the appraiser's call to figure out what stage it's at. In other words, if it's got sheetrock, if it's been sheetrock on the inside, and it's got the exterior, whether it's stone, brick, vinyl, it's got the roof on, then it's that customer preference stage. And then the appraiser can note on the appraisal, subject to light fixtures, plumbing fixtures, toilets, flooring, countertops. If it's not at customer preference stage, then the appraiser has to request from the lender plans and specs and the required VA docs, which is VA description of materials 1805.
Okay. Well, it will never be a problem for us to provide the plans and specs, so
Yeah.
as long as.
Well, most time you'll have a cut sheet, of the
Yeah.
house and
Usually,
everything.
yeah, usually
From
it's
a
an
previous
MLS
sale in the
with ours,
subject.
so you could find
Yeah.
it yourself.
It's very easy to figure out.
Yeah, okay.
If an appraiser can't figure it out, he's not doing that research,
Okay,
in my opinion.
okay.
What do you feel like is a reasonable time frame for turnaround? I mean, obviously, you're one of the busiest appraisers that I know, but it seems like you always get the job done. It's frustrating to us on our side when they say we've ordered the appraisal, it'll be 3.5 weeks.
Ooh.
It's kind of like, well, can we call somebody else? Or appraisals aren't getting picked up right now, we're seeing.
Yeah, I would say 3.5 weeks if I'm doing a personal appraisal to establish value for a realtor or individual, whoever, but for a lender, if I said 3.5 weeks, they probably wouldn't use me no more. So, but I try typically with VA, VA actually has pushed it up to 10 days in Johnson County, Wake County, and Wayne County. But
It used to be 3 weeks, right?
no, it used to be 7 days,
Yeah.
7 business days.
So, okay, sorry.
Yeah.
From when they order it?
When they order.
it.
Yep, when they order.
And then they have 10 days to get it back, right?
Yes, business days.
Okay.
Yeah. But personally, with everything, we try to get everything out the door within 7 days. But times have gotten real busy, so I mean, there's some that go to 10 days, 10 to 15 days, depending on. It all depends, get back to what Tracy said, if I don't have the information that I need, like plans and specs, or if it's new construction, then that's gonna delay my turnaround time. If I've got all the information, I try to get it done within 7 days.
In the process of
Next question.
pulling this up. Just a second. Which one did you want to start with, the blank one or the one that has,
It doesn't matter, y'all tell me.
I'm gonna throw up the one that has. I have to zoom in on this. For those of you on Zoom, I put it in the chat box so that you can see the document, because I'm not gonna be able to share this. I might be able to, hold on a second. it's not going to be shared. So I'm sorry, for anyone that's on Zoom, please refer to the documents in chat. But we're doing the one that has the actual address on there. So if you want to start,
Okay, would you like me to start line by line?
Yeah.
however you want to do it, yes.
Yeah, just kind of explain to us like the
Okay.
high points, what's most important when we are, you know, one of the biggest things is we get an appraisal and it looks like Greek to us. And so it took me calling you 17 times to say, what does this mean? Why does it say this? So some of the main highlights, and then, you know, I also like to argue cost approach versus sales approach with you when it's new construction. So,
Well, always, cost is gonna be more than what market approach is.
Right.
And actually, I wish Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac would take the cost approach off the appraisal, because lenders don't lend on cost approach, they lend on the market.
hey, I like to argue with those, you have to remind me of that.
Okay, this is called the subject section right here. It's pretty much self-explanatory. It's asking you for the address, the city, the state, zip code, who the borrower is, and the owner of public record. And actually, this appraisal right here is new construction in Wayne County. Wayne County, legal description, you always start with the lot number, the subdivision name. I always like to put the plat book and page number when it's new construction, which the other part of the legal description could be the deed book and page number also. And this, the parcel number, that's easy to get, that comes off the tax card. Tax year 2022, real estate taxes $1,500 estimated, since it's new construction, I estimated. I try to find an existing piece of property right beside of it or down the street. Maybe it says 1,400, since it's new construction, I went up a little bit, 1,500. I always put estimated behind it. That's
Do you
the,
use the purchase price with and then multiply it by that county's tax, or you just
No,
throw
I
a dart
just-
at
on new construction, I just estimated, let the attorney figure that out.
it? Okay,
As long as I get in the close.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
that's right. So the attorney doesn't see this or care. Okay, I got it.
Now, he may have a copy of it. He may have a copy of the appraisal. I don't know, but on, you know, on existing construction, what you can do is go to the training on MLS and go to tax reals. And
Right,
you
right.
you know, the correct amount. Tax year, real estate tax, neighborhood is Stonebridge. Map reference, I always put NA. It could be the plat book page number right here. I've always done that. Never had a lender or anybody question how come I put NA. Or you could put, I think on the Wake County tax card, it has like a map reference. It's always about 4 or 5 digits. The census tract, anybody know what a census tract is?
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure you have something hanging on your door, your front door,
Yeah, yes.
wanting to know, when they go around to see what population is in a certain area. So by this 3.03, the US government knows how many, plus or minus how many people are in this certain area. Our software figures that up. I
Is
don't
it a rule of thumb, you try to stay within the same census tract as your subject property?
know, because yes and no. I mean, you could go from here to the woods and then that turns into another census tract. Same thing as a zip code.
Okay.
And where did you see it found out? Or does it-
My appraisal
we don't
software
need to know
does that.
that.
No.
So that's something.
Just explaining to what the census tracking is, and actually, I don't, it may give it on the Wake County tax card, to be honest with
Does that affect the value, or is it just an FYI?
you. Just an FYI,
Okay.
yeah. Now you may have a different census tracking, and maybe like downtown Raleigh or something, and you know, looking at that census tracking, the property value is gonna be higher than 3.03 census tract. Occupant, you got a choice of owner, tenant, vacant. This one being vacant, being new construction. Special assessments, a lot of times we put, if it's new construction and there's a capital contribution over $100 or whatever it may be, that's what goes right there in the special assessments. And actually, we come down here and make a note, the above special assessments include a capital contribution, one-time capital contribution. And PUD, which is planned unit development, when you have HOA dues. $300 per year. Has a choice to put per month or per year. And the property rights appraised fee simple, leasehold, or other. 99.99% of the time, it's gonna be fee simple. Assignment type, this is a purchase transaction. You've got a choice if it was a refinance to put refinance here, or other could be like a construction to perm. And what a construction perm is, new construction, you get a construction loan, and then it goes to a permanent loan. Typically, somebody like, KS Bank does construction perms, or maybe into your Truist Bank now. And the lender client goes right here, address to them. I'll black that out because confidentiality. And right here, they want to know the 12 months sales history of the subject property. If it's been offered for sale, they want to know the price and the date. It's right here, date and the days on the market, 285. Existing construction was listed with MLS on this date at this price, and actually had another price change to this, another price change to this, and another price change to this. And then, and that's been the norm the last 6 to 8 months. Okay, right here, it says analyze, did we analyze the contract? Typically we put yes, because we provided a contract, because it's a sale. And for VA, they want this comment about the escape clause. I'm sure y'all know about the escape clause in the contract. It's saying that the veteran has a certain amount of time to get out of the signed contract. This is the contract price, contract date. Is the seller the owner of public record? Yes. Tax records is the source where we get it from. And right here, there was no seller concessions. Provided contract, there appears to be no seller concessions. So that is the subject in the contract section. So do y'all have any questions?
What is arm's length sale mean?
Arm's length sale is a willing buyer and a willing seller come together. It's not a brother and sister or a father and son or a mother and daughter where they call it not a non-arm's length transaction where they're probably purchasing the property below market value. That's when it would become non-arm's length. But arm's length is
Oh, I thought it was.
Well,
I thought it was the opposite.
Yeah. As long as there's no outside influence as to why this contract is taking place or the agreement between, is that a good
Yeah,
explanation you would say?
yeah.
So it is arm length, so that means like, yep, imagine to me in real estate school, it's like we're shaking hands
exactly.
on a deal. If it was my sister, my mom, my brother, or there was an undue influence for some reason, it would be considered.
So is a
Undue
for-
influence, that's the-
Yes.
Is a foreclosure still an arm's length sale?
It could be, yeah, it still is, yeah. I mean, if it's real estate owned, if the bank owns it, I mean, they're selling it to an individual,
Right.
but it's still an arm's length transaction on that.
Mhm.
Because the bank, I'm sure, is going to probably sell it still at a good price. I consider non-arm's length is relatives or best friend or
A relationship between the owner and the seller.
exactly, yep.
All right. Keep going.
Okay, this is pretty much self-explanatory also. Go to the left-hand side, you see neighborhood. We're trying to explain what the neighborhood characteristics are, which is rural. Build up 25 to 75%, growth stable. It could be rapid in certain other places.
Well, we should
How
define
is that
rapid.
determined?
Yeah.
What is rapid?
Well, to be honest with you, I have never put rapid on there.
I'm just curious, if the builder's putting up like 20 houses at the same time, is that considered stable or rapid?
I would say that would be just in this market, just the norm.
Mhm.
Now, it would be rapid him putting 20 houses up within a certain amount of time, but they're talking about just the neighborhood in general, the growth of the neighborhood.
I will say during the recession, we saw declining on that for the first time.
Oh,
Would
yeah,
you
yeah,
agree?
yeah, no doubt.
So
Yeah.
during the recession, you
Yeah.
get appraisals through and it would say declining market because you could see that sales were constantly going down in that community.
Yeah, that's what you're talking about, property values.
Mhm.
Yeah, the next one is property values increasing, stable, declining, demand and supply, shortage, imbalance, oversupply, which it could fall into shortage, to be honest with you, in certain places also. I personally don't think there's a shortage in Wayne County in certain places, but maybe in Johnson County there is inventory. We all know about the inventory,
Mhm.
supply and demand and inventory going on. In market time, actually, it needs to be, that's borderline right here. It probably should be under 3 months right here on this one right here. But we are talking about Wayne County, but Johnson County, I would put under 3 months in Wake County also. Somebody say anything?
I was just saying, like, so in Wake County, would you say that property values are increasing?
Yeah, and so, yeah, most
It
definitely.
just depends. on the county.
Yeah, most definitely. And one unit housing prices, you start at the lowest and go to the highest, and what your predominant is, or your mean. Lowest I estimate to be 30,000, highest in this area 500, and the predominant 330. And then the age 0, which is new, and the high 100. And because we're in a rural farming community, I'm sure there's a 100-year-plus-year home somewhere. Predominant 8. That's pretty much the appraiser's call. If he knows, if he's not knowledgeable with the market, that this right here could really, it could change. It change a whole lot. And the present land use 1 unit, which is residential, 2 to 4 is duplex, triplex, quadplex, multifamily. You know what multifamily is? Commercial, and other is vacant land. So I put 40% vacant land in the area, and I think down here somewhere I put right here. Land use is attributed to vacant land, the other above land use. And right here, the neighborhood boundaries, you always try to put the neighborhood boundaries encompassed within where your comparable sales are at. In other words, your neighborhood boundary should be surrounding all your comparable sales. Which says Highway 111, east of Highway 13, south and west of Highway 70. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, they like highways. They don't like rivers or buildings or landmarks. The neighborhood description, I'm telling where the property is located in Wayne County. Pretty much self-explanatory. So here's market conditions, including support of the above conclusions. And this is a VA comment right here. VA always wants you to put this specific comment in. I have considered relevant competitive lists and minimum contract offerings in the performance of this appraisal and the trending information reported in this section. If a trend is indicated, I have attached an addendum providing relevant competitive lists / contract offerings data.
Now, I have
And what does
seen-
that mean? I have no idea. VA.
Now, I have seen in this section, I've used it as an argument, especially when I've gotten an appraiser who's come from Wake Forest, and they were appraising something in Benson, and they literally made a comment like it was, I mean, it was out of the area or something like that. He made it sound like it was really far out there, and it was 1 mile from I-40, and I'm like, it's far out to you because you're from Wake Forest, but it was kind of, this is why I say it's really important to read these little things, because if they are not familiar with our area, there may be some things, like you said, some stuff is boilerplate, but there may be some things that they're missing that he came down Highway 50 to get to Benson, it probably did feel like it was forever. If he'd have taken a ride, he'd have realized he'd
That's
been on
exactly
40.
right, yeah. He was kind of cutting into his time.
Right.
But let's see where we at. Okay,
So we're excited.
yeah, I got you. We're in the site section here. Pretty much self-explanatory again. Electricity, the public or other, 99.9% of the time it's going to be public. Gas, you either put public, which is natural gas. Other right here, X would be put LP gas. Water, you either say public or other. Offsite improvements, street asphalt. When it says offsite improvements, it's talking about off the lot itself. In other words, it's just subdivision street, pretty much is asphalt. In the alley, we really don't have no alleys unless you get into town somewhere. I appreciate that.
Can you go back just a little bit?
Sure.
Now, 15,000 square foot, that's not the.
Yeah, that's right. We didn't even cover that. 15,000 square feet, that is 75 times 200, 15,000 square feet, that is a lot size.
Okay,
Yep.
yeah.
On, and actually, I apologize, this form right here, in 2000, after 2008, the HVC, Home Valuation Code of Conduct, and the Dodd-Frank bill, after, the mortgage bailout and everything, they changed a lot of things in the real estate industry. And one of them being this form right here, and they call it the UAD form, which is the Uniform Appraisal Data Set. And we'll get into the symbols later, and it's kind of confusing. But and what their intentions were to, and this is what I read, where they could compile data and put it into a module somewhere. In other words, the lender would not require an appraisal to be done in a certain amount of years, like 4 years from now, they could hit a button, the loan process, the loan originator hit a button, and it will compute all the information that was put into the computer. So that's why they do the C1 and a Q, which I'll show you in a few seconds. So I've got another name for what UAD stands for, but I'm not gonna say it.
Scary.
But anyhow, uniform S9 data. Sorry about that. But anyhow, this is a UAD form. If you look, can you scroll all the way down to at the very bottom? See right here, let's see right here, the UAD version come out in 2011. And this is what the lender, is pretty much what everybody sees. All the lenders use this form right here. Now you made the normal, typical form prior to this one we use in case one of you call, want me to do an appraisal to establish value on a piece of property. It won't give you this, say this C1, it's a little bit easier to fill in. Okay, we're back up here, but that was a good question. And you go back up to it. And they require actually Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. If it's over an acre, you put 1.0, 1.1. If it's under an acre, then you do the square footage. I have no idea why they did that. And the shape of the lot's rectangular. The view and N means neutral. Did you pass that? Jeez, okay. N means neutral. RES means residential. Specific zone of classification, RAG, which is residential agriculture. It could be anything, whatever your tax card says. Most of the time, if your tax card does not have what the zoning is on it, just call the county, they'll tell you. Zoning compliance, is it legal, non-conforming grandfather use? This is legal, but if it was legal, non-conforming grandfather use, it could be a small lot in town. Where the homeowner has over a period of time cut off the lot, which is now non-conforming because it does not meet town's lot size requirement. That's when it become a legal non-conforming grandfather use, or no zoning or illegal. I've never, maybe 1 or 2 times on no zoning and illegal have checked that. The highest and best use of the subject property is approved. Yes, it's residential. That's the highest and best use of this house right here, is residential house. And we've already talked about it. Yes, we've already talked. We've already gone down to right here.
Yeah.
Okay, the flood hazard area, which my appraisal software figures up if it's in a flood zone or not in the flood zone. And it gives you the flood map number right here and the FEMA date number.
Here's a question.
Mhm.
Now, if it's in a flood zone, the 100-year, 500-year, do you put that on there?
Yes, actually, my software will put right here, FEMA's flood hazard area, yes. And when it does, yes, I will come down here and yes, put that in there also.
Okay.
Just to see why. That's a good question.
And we're gonna talk about some adjustments and stuff when we get a little bit further down, but is that something you make an adjustment for if it's in a flood zone versus not, if it doesn't have to have flood insurance?
Exactly.
Okay.
No. Maybe if you're at the coast, maybe, but I've never made adjustment for subject property. Most of them around here, it's not gonna be in a flood zone, unless you went around the lake or.
Right.
But
big
even if
creeks.
it
Yeah, exactly.
even if it does require flood insurance, you still don't make an adjustment.
No,
Good to know.
Mhm.
and I actually never seen an appraiser make an adjustment for.
I would have assumed.
I would assume too, but
With that being known, though, see, I would take that in, I would probably stay on the lower range of value instead of the higher range of value, knowing that it is in the flood zone.
Okay.
Now, putting a price on it, making an adjustment,
You're just adjusting in your head, not on paper.
exactly, yeah,
So we're down to.
okay,
Subject property.
it's asking, are there any adverse site conditions or external factors that would be easements, encroachments, environmental conditions, land uses, etc.? We got a typical boilerplate we put right here, no adverse easements, encroachments, noted as inspection setbacks are typical. But an external factor could be like an asbestos plant located next door, or 200 yards down the road, or anything that may affect the value of that property.
So those
Industrial wise or.
So all those houses in Benson that abut the pig farm. that happen on? Just curious.
There's a sign that tells them they're living beside a hog farm.
The one on Raleigh Road?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're talking about. Yeah, well, that's typical Johnson County.
Yeah.
So I will not make no adjustment for that.
So let's get into subject property, I think is next. And this is a place that I always look because I have found a lot of discrepancies. And I feel like if you're going to challenge an appraisal, if you just come up with a few things that they missed, and it's almost giving you the right to say, well, you missed this. I mean, I've had some say vinyl when the house is hardy plank. I've had some, especially when these appraisers are flying around now and don't do as good a job as Zan does. I think it's really important to make sure that all the information is accurate.
I had one recently miss a bathroom.
Mhm.
Just completely missed it.
Well, I will say this, I'm not perfect. I miss bathroom also once in a while.
It was not you that we were calling out.
And it's an honest mistake to come in right here. That's why I've got two appraisers who work for me. Actually, I got a new trainee now. But everything that goes out my office, I review it. I make them, when they go out to the site on the inspection, to write down everything, and I compare it to the MLS sheet or the tax card or whatever it may be. Before it goes out the door, I have reviewed everything. And actually, that's a very common mistake because a lot of people don't know the difference between hard board mason outside and fiber cement side or vinyl. You know, some vinyl.
You gotta go touch it.
Yeah, touch it.
Make sure now.
Um,
Well, let's get down to, just because I know we've all got a bunch of questions on adjustments and things like that, to talk a little bit, and I know you gave us a cheat sheet on the C1. We had an issue with that this year with one of our listings, that it wasn't in great condition, but it wasn't in terrible condition, and it literally made it unlendable because of the
That
C
must have been a
condition.
that must have been a C6.
I think it was a C5, but that's the first time I'd ever heard of that, and so we had to go through the whole education on what that meant as far as a condition. I'd never seen one of those.
Okay, so it's condition 1 through 10, is that what it stands for?
1 through 6.
1 through
1 through 6, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it was either C5 or C6, but so the lender.
The lender didn't want a loan on it because the appraiser had noted it as a C5, but it really wasn't that bad.
Well, now you've got this cheat sheet right here,
Yeah.
so you know what
Exactly.
this thing means, but very rarely do I see a C5 and C6 unless it's a foreclosed property. And if it is a C5, I will call the lender up, talk to the lender and say, look, this property does not meet HUD standard or VA. Would you like me to make it subject to repairs being done? And a lot of times the lender will say, yeah, make it subject to repairs. So you still can do the appraisal, but it's subject to all the repairs being done that I request.
Yeah. It was just something I never even knew to look for. And then if we get to where they've made adjustments, it notes the C score on all the other comparables. So I thought that was really interesting. And, you know, mine's a 1 and the appraisers, the rest of them are 2s or 3s, you know, to try to pay attention to the adjustments that are being made.
Right.
Where's the C score on there?
Right here, C1. C1 is new construction. And this sentence behind it does not make any sense. No updates in the prior 15 years. That's embedded into the software. And I wish they would.
Brand new, it wasn't there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly right. Exactly.
Fan, is there a reason, like, is there ever a reason you would not ask them? Do you want me to make it subject to?
Oh,
Like
yes,
needing
if the
repairs?
lender send over, a request, do it as is. Do the appraisal as is, then I'll do it as is.
Is there any reason why they would do that?
Most
So they
time,
can
most
get
time if somebody's getting a loan on, it, individual is getting a loan and it's a mortgage broker or whatever, they're gonna want it repaired. If it's a bank, like a local bank or whatever, they're trying to establish, maybe they're doing like a loan for the homeowner. They may do like a cash out refinance form, but to answer your question, it could go both ways on that. It depends on what the lender wants. The lender said, do it as is, I do it as is. If they say, make it subject.
Is that something we should argue? That's why I guess what my question is, because if it's done as is, but the seller's willing to fix, could we go back to the bank and say,
Sure.
can we not make this subject to?
Yeah,
Can it
if
change?
the seller's willing to make the repairs, but how many times is the seller willing to make repairs on a C5 or a C6? I mean, you've got major,
If that's why that one's really bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough.
yeah, you got major damage, not major damage. You could if he's made the C5 and the C6. There's something he saw with his eyes that wasn't, made the house not livable
Right.
and not marketable.
So when we get here, this is obviously kind of the meat for us. What are the major things that we need to be looking at? Obviously, we're looking at square footage, location, things like that. But as far as that goes, what are the main points we should be looking at?
Well, this is where I make stuff up at.
Okay.
You heard it. He said it.
Exactly. One thing right here that catches my eye that you may have a question about is our lot size is 15,000 square feet. This first column right here is 1.76 acres, which is obviously way bigger than our subject. How come no adjustment is made right here? My philosophy on this is that this column right here, if I remember correctly, backs up to a flood zone, backs up to a flood zone. So this is an equal building lot, equal to the subject, because if the developer could get 3 more lots out of that 1.76, he would have got 3 more lots out of it.
Right.
But, somebody may want an acre and a half of land, and somebody, oh, that's too much to take care of. In my eyes, it's pretty much considered an equal building lot to the subject property.
We talked about that in our CMA class we did the other day. I've always been told, for the most part, a lot is a lot in a subdivision, because those sellers have always been like, well, theirs is only 0.87 and my lot over here is 0.95. So that's and it's like,
I hear that all the time.
yeah.
Yeah. But, okay. So what you try to do is you try to find 3 comparable sales that sold in the last 12 months, similar to the subject. 2 of these right here are in the subject subdivision. 1 is outside the subject subdivision. You try to find comparable neighborhoods, subdivisions that are similar to the subject, the one outside. And you always, this is go down this line right here. There's neutral residential again, Stonebridge, fee simple came from the first page. 15,000 square feet came from the first page. View came from the first page. DT means detached 2-story, traditional. That's what I normally, it's a traditional 2-story. Q4, which if you look at Q4, whatever Q4 says,
Q4 is
normal
quality.
workmanship.
Yeah.
Yeah, just standard. Actual wage, 0, condition C1, which is new. Your rooms right here, 943, 3.0 baths. They always want you to put a point after the bath. If it's 2.5, you're supposed to put 2.1. If it's 2 baths and 2 halves is 2.2. Before in the past, before they came out with the UAD, if you had two baths and 2 half baths, it would be 2.5. Let's see what else.
Okay, so room count, what do you count as a room? Do you count foyer?
Good question.
Livable areas, but not including, you don't include closets. A loft I would include as a room count. If you have say like a kitchen with a little breakfast beside of it, then normally I always include breakfast as
A separate room?
a separate room, because you could put a wall in between 2
I
walls.
usually do too, unless it's blatantly obvious, it's right smack in the middle of the kitchen. Then it's
Exactly.
fine.
If it's that, I call it the eating kitchen.
And you don't count bathrooms, or do you?
Okay. Count them as what? Heated square footage?
Right, in your room.
Oh, no. You don't count, you don't count baths as rooms.
So just bedrooms,
Just
living
just
areas.
bedrooms and
foyer,
living areas, family rooms, lofts.
Unless the foyer is a huge room with a
Foyer.
couch in it.
Actually, I had president office asked me this morning, asked my trainee, said, do you count a foyer as a room? I said, never. Yeah, unless it's about the size of this room right here, probably I'll call it.
We do have a question from somebody on Zoom. Jennifer, you can unmute yourself and talk.
Thanks, team. I appreciate that. So I had a quick question that is sort of related to that. And I'm sorry if I'm derailing a little bit, but I do have another meeting that I need to jump in at 11. So I guess it's in this market, we're seeing a lot that properties that are being bought, or our clients are properties that have actually been recently bought also by the sellers. So I have this particular scenario where my clients just went under contract on a house that was actually bought by the sellers less than a year ago. They're transitioning because of work. And now, they bought the house $80,000 less last year because that's where the comps were at the time. Now, when they relisted the house, or when they listed the house now, is higher because the price per square footage in the area has gone up. So my clients went in at, on a compatible offer for what the house is worth now. Now, we're concerned that when an appraiser looks at the house and says, well, this house is being sold right now for this much, but it was, it was bought less than a year ago for $80,000 less. Like, how are appraisers looking at those numbers, even though, the comps are there because they're homes that have been sold recently in probably less of a condition at the same square footage? Like, I guess my question is, how are appraisers looking at those big jumps on values of the homes? And thank you.
Yeah, that's a good question. It should be no problem if there's already comparable sales to support this new sales price, this new contract price. It shouldn't be no problem, but the appraiser, it's his job to find new sales within the last 3 months of his inspection date. And he has to make a note. Can you pull this up a little bit?
Yes, sir.
He has to make a note on the appraisal report, sales of the subject property within the last 12 months, right here. So a lot of times the lender will come back and say, how come the, I think you said 80,000 more, but a lot of times the lender will come back and say, can you put a note in, why has the subject property gone up $80,000 within the last year? And that's when the appraiser needs to type an addendum or put something on put a revision on the appraisal itself, saying when the market has increased in value since the last sale.
So if
And
there's
long
sales
what's
to
that?
support it, then.
Yeah, as long as you
use
got
it as
sales
a
to
comp,
support it, yeah, that's fine.
Then it's no longer a comp for itself.
Shall be.
Right. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Speaking of number of rooms, what would you do as far as the value goes if it's a 3-bedroom versus a 4-bedroom? If the square footage is very similar.
I've never, the only time you make adjustments for residential, single family residential, if it's 3 or less. If you got a 3-bedroom, 5-bedroom, I did not make no adjustment difference between bedrooms. Now, if it's a duplex or triplex or quadplex, then I'll make an adjustment because it's an investment property and somebody who, they're trying to rent more rooms out. But on residential, if it's above 3, I do not make no adjustments.
So when we're comping properties, it's okay to compare. If I'm listing a 4-bedroom, I can use a 3-bedroom comp.
Yeah, yeah.
As long as it's square footage.
Yeah, long square footage, yeah. Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah, I mean,
That's
all
a
the time, like,
game
how much
changer
would you
right
add
now.
for a 4th bedroom? And I've always said, 4th bedroom doesn't necessarily make it more marketable if somebody has 1 kid.
Exactly.
So the square
That's what I was
footage
getting ready
is
to
the
say.
same.
Yeah, but I just thought you had to use the same. I thought it had to be the same if you had the same. So,
Keep it within
yeah,
the
I
square.
thought if you had the same, if you had 3 comps that were 3 bedrooms in the neighborhood, you had to use those over a 4-bedroom.
Now just keep it within, close to your heated square footage.
All right, that's fabulous.
So what about 3-car garage versus 2-car garage?
I do make an adjustment, yes, on that.
What would you say is an average?
Depending on the size of the house, typically we make anywhere from $4,000 to $6,000 adjustment, which is gonna cost you more to build it, but cost doesn't equal what the market's willing to bear for extra garage.
Are you still not making any adjustments for pools?
I make adjustments for pools.
You do?
Yeah.
Where are you at on that?
Well, everybody's getting real fancy with pools now.
I know, that's what I'm
So
asking.
it's-
COVID made
you're
pools.
getting with
Put this on the
waterfalls and
map.
everything else. And nice concrete aprons around it. I'm anywhere from 8,000 on up to 25,000.
What about above ground? Anything? If it's done
I
well?
do not get no value. for
Nothing
above
at all.
ground.
If it's
I
not a
will
deck,
occasionally,
landscape?
if it does have a nice deck around it and it's a high quality above ground pool, I will. But
But very minimal, like
Minimal, and I do put a
$2,000.
comment in the appraisal, minimum value was given to the above ground pool.
What about solar?
Oh,
That-
great question.
That is a
I
great
know there's a
question.
few
yeah.
part with solar, so I've noticed that a lot of people are not getting the power wall system, and I feel like the power walls are gonna give you more value versus just a regular solar system.
And the power wall is what lets your house run if the power goes out?
Yes, this is
Okay.
similar to having the Generac, so I feel like that kind of could give you more value, but it may not.
Maybe if we were in California or somewhere like that, maybe an appraiser would make an adjustment. I have not yet seen an appraiser make an adjustment for solar. We started this 6 months ago because that is a good question, because when you go out to a property on a refinance, you always ask the homeowner, what kind of improvements have you done? The first thing that comes out there, math is, well, we just paid a lot of money for this solar.
The solar companies are selling it, but it's gonna
Yeah.
improve their value. Yeah, the
Okay.
solar
Yeah.
companies are.
Oh,
they
yeah,
are.
yeah. And that's anywhere from $50,000 on up, to be honest with you.
Yes.
And we always ask if they own or they're leasing it, because the vendor always wants to know that. I don't know what, if, I don't know what they require there, and if I say lease or own, or whatever, but we always put that. But we always put a comment in now that although the subject has, the subject has solar panel and, which is auxiliary heat and is an attribute to the subject property. You always want to let the homeowner know it is an attribute, you know, to his or her property. But after that, we always put, at this time, the market is not bearing an adjustment for solar heat.
Is there a certain saturation level of when that will make a change? Like pools, we didn't used to get anything for either until recently, and the solar companies are out there.
Yes.
They're
Oh, yeah,
grabbing
they're
everybody.
pushing it
And so I'm just
hard.
wondering, at
Yeah.
some point, will it catch up and there will be some value given?
I have no idea.
I have another question. Generac systems,
Huh?
the non-solar, are there, if you see one of those in a house, are you giving value for that?
No,
Okay.
no.
Typically, it's because
I'm
it
asking
can
these
be
questions
removed,
because I'm in
somebody
the
can pick it
process
up
of
and take
doing
it with
solar.
them. And
Yeah,
so-
I'd like to have solar as backup also, but no, I do not make any adjustments for it. I have not seen where the market's willing to bear that adjustment.
And when those types
Kind of seen as a luxury. on
Yeah,
the house.
as an attribute, is what I call it, as a luxury, yeah.
When those type of things happen, is there like a governing body that says, okay, now we're North Carolina or in Raleigh, we're gonna start doing this, or do you guys just kind of, all of a sudden it happens, like, who decides when something is like given value, right? Like pools weren't given any
Yeah,
value
yeah,
for the
well,
longest
it's with appraisers.
time. You just
yeah,
decide,
yeah.
nobody, it's
Well,
a personal decision, right, is what I'm asking.
We're gonna get to the adjustments in this scenario. If you got a house, say if you got a house that's sold for $100,000. And you got another house that's identical to it, very identical to it. Everything's the same except for one thing, solar, and it sold for 120. So that's what you call match pairs. So now you got an adjustment to make, $20,000 adjustment, difference between the
Because
house
now
with
that
it and
solar, the
without.
market dictated that solar was.
I don't, you know, it may change like greenhouses, when I say greenhouse, I'm talking about
I
where
know
you're building
what you mean.
houses and everything now. If you were in California, maybe, like I said, solar probably would make an adjustment. If you're in Florida with a pool, everybody wants a pool in Florida. If you don't have a pool in Florida, then that's a negative. But to answer your question, I don't know when that's gonna come about when somebody says you need to start making adjustments for solar heat. I just see it as a super adequacy. That's what I call it. In other words, over improvement.
What kind of adjustment do you make for unfinished square footage above grade and below grade?
Above grade typically, I don't know, anywhere from, it depends on if it's roughed in with plumbing and electrical. I'll use anywhere from $8 a square foot on up to 15.
So is it a percentage based on what the price per square foot your subject
Yeah, pretty
is?
much. Yeah, on a basement, say if a basement, say if I'm making a $50 above grade adjustment, I always drop it down to $10. That's what I've always have seen. You know, you may find another appraiser who uses something different, but I always drop it down to 10. So I use 40 for below grade adjustment. So I always work out.
And that's for finished or unfinished?
That's for finished.
That's, okay.
If for unfinished, I'll use half of it. In other words, if I
Okay, so
drop down to-
finished is not half. I had heard finished basement was half a long time ago, so.
maybe that was, yeah, a long time ago. I probably did do it that way.
I'm not saying you did it, but I'm.
Well,
just-
no, I'm saying I did probably a long time ago. In other words.
So you're getting, they're getting a little bit more credit for finished.
Oh, yeah,
below
definitely
grade
for
now than
finished,
they-
yeah.
okay, all right.
Yeah, in other words, if if I'm
But
getting
it's-
$40 for finished for a basement, but if it's not finished, if it's unfinished, I'll drop it down to 20, maybe 15.
So it is about half or less
Yeah,
than half if
yeah,
it's unfinished,
Just a little bit, I'd say a little bit less than half.
less than half, yeah, because you dropped.
Depends on
it below it.
if I need to make the numbers work, what I'm on.
We're gonna delete that from.
Yeah, this is not going to the appraisal board. Is it?
That,
Okay, good, that's great.
this one's just between us.
We are starting to run out of time, so what are your other major points that you feel like as agents we need to pay attention to and know about on the appraisal?
For finished.
That's not much.
Well,
But if it's unfinished, then he drops.
of course,
Less than half. So if
you're not
it's
going,
And drops out.
raise a flag if it's appraised for what it's under contract for or more.
Right.
The only time you won't get upset is that if it's under appraised value. And my only advice is see what comparable sales that the appraiser used. And if he or she's not knowledgeable with the market, he or she may not have used something in subdivision that's real comparable to it.
What are y'all doing now with so many off-market sales? Now we are adjusting the fact, because y'all still have to check tax records.
Oh, yeah. I will use it. I mean, if it helps me out, I will use a for sale by owner sale. I mean, that's a good sale too. That's great. And actually, I tell my appraisers in the office, I check the tax record. Go use the Johnson County GIS or Wake County or whatever, and just walk down each lot and see if it's closed or not. And sometimes we find a good sale where it's a private sale and it shoot the value up higher than the ones that's in the multiple listing service.
So as a listing agent, it's really important to know because not all appraisers are as thorough. If you know somebody, the neighbor just sold their house and it went for this, but it never hit MLS because it was either a, office exclusive or it was for sale by owner. You want to have that information in your arsenal to make them aware because they should have checked, but not always
That's right.
do.
And a lot of times on a refinance, I always ask the homeowner also, do you know of any sales in the subdivision, in your subdivision that's closed, that maybe was a private sale, whether it be for sale by owner or Zillow or whatever the other ones are. And a lot of times the homeowner already knows what's going on in their neighborhood.
They all.
And they'll say, so right down the street, this address, just sold. I sell this sale.
Right.
So I'll use anything. Y'all keep putting that good information in the listen service for me so I can.
We do have a question from Paula on Zoom. Paula, you can unmute yourself.
I just wanted to talk about the adjustments for pools. Can you just walk me through that a little bit? If you have similar properties and you're trying to get a price, but they're similar in all ways except one has a pool and one doesn't?
Yeah, I think we discussed this, but if your subject has a pool, first of all, you try to find comparable sales that have pools so you don't have to make an adjustment. Yeah, but if your subject property, which your subject property is the property that's being appraised, has a pool and the comp one does not have a pool, depending on how nice a pool it is, like I said, anywhere from 8,000 on up to 25,000, depending on if it's got a concrete apron, a fence, waterfall, slide. A lot of people now are going way out with putting pools in. I mean, nice pools. I've seen pools in the last year, but I never thought I'd see in Johnson County.
Would you say it's a fair number to maybe be around 25 to 30% of what it costs them to put in? You can give
Yeah,
them as
that's
return.
right. Yeah, that's what I was going to get at. There again, cost doesn't equal market. I get this a lot of times. The homeowner call me and say, "Look, it cost me $50,000 to put that pool in." I said, "Well, so ma'am, sir," I said, "the cost doesn't equal market. In other words, the market's not willing to bear what it costs to put your pool in. Somebody else may not want a pool." So that's why I didn't give you $50,000 just.
I tell them spend as much time in it as you can until you
Yeah,
sell it.
Did that help?
Yeah, thank you. That's really helpful.
Well,
I have two questions.
Sure.
So at what point, so like a year or two ago, I helped a buyer buy a piece of property in a neighborhood that had like a really, really, really large lot compared to all the other ones. It wasn't a flood zone. It actually even had like a stream in the back that was very aesthetically pleasing to the eye. At what point difference of land size does it actually give value? Because he gave no value to the land on that one, which I've heard is normal, but at what point is 1 acre compared to 15, like.
yeah, kind of like this situation right here. If I remember correctly, on this comp one right here, it was 1.7 acres compared to 15,000 square feet. It was, if I remember correctly, it was a lot that just went back, it really had no function to it other than the front of it where the house is built. I would look at if, yeah, like a swamp, yeah, swamp. I would look at the lot size. If you got a lot rectangle like this right here, that's a 1 acre. You got another lot that's 2 acres rectangle. Then I wouldn't make an adjustment because that's that's a desirable lot. But if you got a lot that zigzags or whatever it may be and runs with the creek and then comes back, a lot of times they will put a septic, offsite septic lot somewhere. But it's taking an acre to get to that other square footage, so I don't make an adjustment for
Okay.
that.
And then one other question. So let's say we have a property that does have a pool, it's the nicest home in the neighborhood, or has like a detached, really nice workshop. Is there anything that you can do to the home? And this is probably a very far-fetched question. Is there anything you can do to the home that kind of would make it be more appealing on the appraisal to kind of make up for those other things that we're not gonna get credit for?
Yeah, updates, kitchen updates, updates to the interior, landscaping to the outside.
Okay.
Maybe in
So
the
landscaping does give it value?
Yeah. But putting, me telling you what value it gives, I can't
Right.
tell you.
It's different for
I
everybody.
will stay on the high range of value. In other words, if I got 3 comparable sales and the low one, middle one, high one, whatever, I'm gonna stay on the high range because our subject property has nice landscaping. You try to find other sales that have nice landscaping.
And again, I think that goes back to what we talk about a lot, marketing value versus actual dollar value when you're explaining it to your sellers, because he's also got to take into consideration. Yes, your current seller may have put in $3,000 worth of landscaping, but this bank is dependent on this property being worth a certain amount in the future. And if this buyer lets the landscaping just go to crap, then that was not a true value add. Does that make sense? So that's why your brain is kind of marketing value, what's gonna make somebody pay more for the house versus what is the house actually worth to the bank who's the one that's got the lien on it.
Mhm.
True.
Any other questions?
I still have a whole list. If you don't mind, you
Don't
can
mind.
stop me at any point. Are there any major factors that we should be considering when we're doing adjustments that you're seeing us as an industry for real estate professionals are missing that we should be doing?
The biggest thing that I see that realtors like to use is price per square foot. There's so many factors that go into that price per square foot, because that price per square foot could be an extra garage, a pool, detached building or whatever. I try to, the realtor will call me up and say, look, I got a company sold right down the road for $150 a square foot. You only appraising yours for the subject for 140. Yeah, yes, maybe, but that one's on twice as big a lot. It's got a 2-car garage compared to no garage on ours. So the price per square foot, which when you're gonna be close to a price per square foot is on new construction. On existing is hard.
And isn't it
Very
different, like, the larger, I've just always noticed this and never truly understood why, in a subdivision, the larger houses always sell for less per square foot than the smaller houses. And I've made up my own reason why, but I'd like to hear. your
That is
answer.
called a point of diminishing returns.
Which is basically what I've said. Okay.
Yeah, and in other words, the higher it is, the higher the square footage, the lower the price.
Per square foot.
Fine.
And I always just explained it like, you'd have too broad of a range within the subdivision if you went straight by price per
Yes.
square
Oh,
foot.
yeah.
You'd have $100,000 house right next to a $200,000 house, but they're very similar
You
houses.
you can stay as close to that square footage as
Yeah.
possible. Fences, do you give value for that?
I do. Yep, anywhere from two to 5,000.
Are you seeing any difference for crawl space versus slab right now, or is it kind of
Great
evening out?
question, Timothy.
I made a list.
Should've known.
That
Here's
is
the
a great
short
question. Used to, I mean, I still make, on smaller homes, say, when I say smaller homes, 12 to 1,400 square feet, somewhere around there, I may make an adjustment for a slab, for like $1,000 or $2,000. Larger homes, a lot of times they'll do like a higher, I can't think of a higher slab, a raised slab, excuse me. And it looks like a crawl space. I haven't seen where the market is willing to pay the difference between a crawl space or one on slab on that.
But they've just become so much more popular over
Yeah,
the
they
last
have.
5,
They sure have.
7 years, so.
Really, the last 10 months, I would say, it's
Yeah,
really
yeah.
escalated
It's
with
just
these
big.
builders
Yeah.
that don't want to pay for lumber,
Yeah.
Yep.
and it's cheaper to build a crawl space.
So I could or couldn't make an adjustment. It all depends on the situation. Yes, ma'am.
My colleague had a question. She said, when you're looking at a neighborhood like Eagle Ridge, which if you know that neighborhood.
Yeah, golf course
is-
community.
It's, the pricing out there is just whack, but, if you see a house that has vinyl siding versus another house that looks like it's more custom built with hardy plank, do you make an adjustment for that?
Sure. Oh, yeah, definitely,
Oh.
definitely for fiber cement sign compared to vinyl.
In a neighborhood like that one or like Broadmoor, where there've been several different eras of construction.
Uh-huh.
So you've got custom homes mixed in with production builders.
Broadmoor West. and Broadmoor.
Right, do you make adjustments there? Do you pay attention to who the builder is, or?
I do pay attention to who the builder is, and I've tried not to use one out of Broadmoor compared to Broadmoor West. And have had a lender come back and say, how come you do not consider this comparable sale, which was in Broadmoor? And I said, it's not built to the same quality as the one I'm appraised. But yeah, I do look at that.
Is that the same case as, say, like, I live in a neighborhood where my neighborhood ends and a new neighborhood starts? My neighborhood had a standard where we did hardy plank siding and crawl space, but the neighborhood that adjoins mine was vinyl on slab. And I mean, my house literally is right next to the other neighborhood. I would say that they're similar square footage and they're still nice quality, but slab vinyl versus hardy crawl.
What's the difference in age between?
10 years.
I probably wouldn't use it as comparable sale. I'd try to get something similar in age and square footage.
Okay.
And with that being said, with age, like what's your rule of thumb of age?
That's a good question too.
Because now we've got some houses that were built in 2018, 19 and 2020, 21 houses coming up. Like, do you compare those? And
I will,
Okay.
if the subject is, say, new construction,
yeah,
2021, now we got a sale in the subdivision. No new construction sales in the subdivision, but I do have one that was built in 2018, which is considerably not that much of an
Yeah.
age difference. I would consider it as a comparable sale. If it was a good sale, I would consider it.
okay.
But that's where I try to analyze. If it wasn't a good sale, then I try to find all new construction sales that
So
help y'all out.
what would be, like, let's go to older homes. then,
Older
like,
homes.
Like, what's your age?
It all
Like,
depends.
here's so many different things.
Yeah, it all depends. If I'm appraising a 10-year-old house, I could use a 30-year-old home if it's been updated. In other words, if a 30-year-old house has had a lot of improvements done to it, they call it, and I give it an effective age of
Okay.
10. I would consider that. And what effective age means is, if you're looking at the house, what does that house look like to you? Does it look like a 30-year-old house or a 10-year-old house? If it's had a lot of improvements, I'd say it looks like a 10-year-old house. I wouldn't have a problem comparing it to a 10-year-old home.
I don't think I ever knew what that meant.
Is it back to
Interesting.
there?
I don't think I ever met, I knew that.
I only-
The tax record says EYB or AYB, I think.
That's effective year built, actual year built.
So
That's also.
I have one last question since we're on new construction. When you're doing new construction appraisals, when you see, like, I'm over a neighborhood right now that we have pre-sales and we have spec houses, and we're no longer doing pre-sales, but they're 12 months out. So the price difference is staggering.
You talking about lumber costs? Is that what you
No, I'm
mean?
just talking the cost, like we have houses that are going to close from what we have right now this week. They're gonna be $80,000 difference from what we're gonna have closing in a couple, like, just months. How does that?
Because they went under contract before things got quite as
That's
crazy.
right, and
It's taken
that's-
us 11
and-
months to build it, and now here we
Oh, yeah,
are,
yeah,
we've
yeah,
got new lenders.
I always put in the appraisal report, of course, you got to find sales to support it, and hopefully you find something in the subdivision, but if you can't, find something out that's comparable. But if the 2 or 3 sales within the subdivision, that's 80,000 less than the ones that's getting ready to close, but you still have to use them as comparable sales. But what I always put in it is per builder / on-site agent, comps 1 and 2 or 3, whatever, went under contract prior to the increase in material costs. And hopefully your other sales are within 30 days.
We haven't seen
support
any
that value.
appraisal issues yet, so, but I was just curious how that would play in and if we.
Oh,
were-
it's happening. I mean, we're putting that in. I had one last week, the same situation. And the woman, how come the ones in the subdivision were, I think it was around $80,000, $75,000 difference.
And if there is that big a difference, if the most recent ones that sold higher, if it was a multiple offer situation, say a cash buyer, how would that play in?
It'd be a great call.
Okay, so it still is considered a con.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it'd be a great call.
That's why I sort of like to call them an argue, like, when you said the cost approach, it's gonna cost them $300,000 to build it, you're saying it's only worth $285,000, and the builder's not gonna sell it for less than it's worth, but it doesn't matter, he's got to use what the values are, of homes that sold, not what it actually costs to build the house. So it's just gonna take a while for all of it to catch up.
The good thing about VA is that they do not require a cost approach.
Gotcha.
And we're expanding mainframe that, we do the same thing, whether it be rural development, USDA and conditional.
I kind of like it right now, though, to be honest, because it does help us when the buyer's upset that it didn't appraise for what they have it under contract for, because like you said, there's an $80,000 spread over 6 months. You're like, you see right here that it says it cost that builder $350,000 to build it? What do you, I mean, we can't just give them away, you know,
But
so.
you could ask 5 builders, what would it cost to build this house, and you're gonna have a big range.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So that's pretty much like a numbers game we've got on the appraisal on the cost approach. And where we get it from, we always put the comment that it's derived from Marshall and Swift Cost Services. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's derived from local builders, suppliers, and realtors. But we always put the comment in that you can make the numbers work on a cost approach. One builder allows be 100,000 difference than another builder on building.
I struggle with that because I feel like if I have a number in my head before I start my comps, that I can make it work in any direction. And I really, you can't even go in with a preconceived notion of what this house is worth. Like you really just have to dig into it first.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. But they tell appraisers not to appraise at the sales price. In other words, you appraise it from what the comps were telling you what it's worth. A lot of appraisers will look at sales price and they'll pull comps just within that sales price.
I recently had we refinanced and the appraiser called me and said, what do you think the house is worth? I'm like, I really don't want to tell you because I want you to tell me.
I understand.
How about, master down versus master up? That's my first question.
I always try to, if the master is up, say the subject has, if the master is down and on the comp 1, the master is up, I will make a design adjustment.
Okay.
Yep.
Approximately.
5,000.
Okay. But typically you only want to use comps that have a master on the same floor. If
Yeah,
possible.
it works out. Sometimes you do have the only sale in subdivision is a 1-story or 2-story, whatever. I mean, it's vice versa, whatever. If it's gonna help the appraisal out and make, make a value, then I will use it. Try to find something down below.
In our market now, sellers aren't wanting to make adjustments. So as a buyer's agent, we're going out and we have an FHA loan or even a USDA loan. Are there particular things that us as agents should look for that might prevent our buyers from getting that home because it won't appraise? Does that make sense?
So like foliage, holes in the roof, holes in the floors.
Okay, you
Like
said
that.
adjustments. You mean repairs or?
Yes.
Yep.
Like repairs.
Okay,
Yes, we're not
okay.
doing any concessions. So with certain loan types, if you guys note that a repair needs to be made on the appraisal, then we're gonna have to negotiate that repair.
Like
If it's-
when should we walk away and say you can't get this house? Like there's too many things that need to be done. Like what things would you really kind of?
FHA is pretty much the same thing. USDA, same thing as VA. The 3 S's: safety, sanitation, and soundness. If it's not safe, then there's the issue. If it's not sanitary, in other words, you smell the septic tank or whatever, or soundness could be safety, sanitation, and soundness. That's right. Minor repairs, cosmetic repairs, or chipping and peeling paint, I would not make that unless it's a lot. Because if it's built prior to 1978, there may be a chance of lead-based paint.
So if we see like, I'm sorry, like, soffits.
Wood rot.
Like wood rot, if there's like major, like you see it.
Yeah, well, you're hoping it's a conventional loan.
Right.
It's done as is.
Something that. would
If
be
it's,
really-
if it's VA and I see a soffit rotted, I would make a note of it, that I would not make a repair for it. I would consider that included in the effective age. Instead of, say it's a 30-year-old home, instead of giving it like a 10-year effective age, I may give it a 20-year effective age because it has a depreciation to it. I wouldn't, you may find another appraiser on FHA may require that to be done, but I think that falls under cosmetic repairs.
I recently had a USDA and one appraiser went out and said, I'm not doing this. This house is about to fall apart.
Was it?
And- Huh?
Was it? With the house?
Well, the next appraiser went out and he said he appraised it with nothing, no
Okay,
issues.
well.
And so we did have a foundation issue with it, but it was really strange how completely different these two appraisers were. And
That same appraiser's the one that won't go on new construction with blue tape on the wall either. so.
Exactly,
That's
exactly.
why they're not the ones speaking at our class.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was just so completely different, you know, you wouldn't even do the appraisal.
Piggybacking off of what she is saying, so do you go in the crawl space and look for problems that
No,
could be
I just
on
take,
sound?
I just take a flashlight and look in there, and I had to make a note on the, I don't know if I put it on the, go to page, page 1. In other words, go to, let's see, keep on, stop right there. A head and shoulders visual inspection was performed on the attic, therefore the appraiser could not fully observe the entire perimeter of that. I'm not a home inspector, so I don't go in that, I don't crawl in attics or crawl spaces. If it's existing construction, I do put a comment in that I'm not a home inspector. If you want to be on the safe side, get a home inspector to make sure the functionality of the appliances and everything else will work. I don't like black widow spiders and snakes. And stuff like that.
In the crawl space though, and there's plastic and it's been really well maintained, whatever, you're gonna go on the, I guess you don't change the value, but you go on the higher end.
If it's got a
versus
vapor barrier,
one
a
that
sealed
has with the
crawl
water.
space,
Yeah, so-
I would put that out, and that's kind of like solar panels, to be
Well,
honest
sealed
with
or
you.
not, but just if it's clean and well maintained versus one that's.
Yeah.
you got
Oh,
water
yeah, yeah.
standing, mold, et
Yeah,
cetera.
I would stay on the higher range of value of that, but I would make a note in the appraisal, on the first page in the amenities right here, sealed crawl space. So that way the lender or the homeowner said, hey, yes, he noticed I had a sealed crawl space. But making an adjustment for it, I don't make an adjustment for it, but I do take it under consideration to stay on the high range of value when it has that type of amenities.
What kind of detached wired shed, say 12 by 14?
12 or 14, is it on block?
Yes.
Yeah, so sometimes most time I don't give value for it because the homeowner could pick it right back up and carry it with them.
But if it's on a foundation.
Just on the foundation, I definitely would give it value. Yes. And if it's in the contract saying that the shed goes with the property, I may give it value, but if it's a refinance, I do not, because the homeowner can refinance. I mean, they could sell the property a month after I did the appraisal on it and take the shed with them, and that value was not corrected. They took shed with it.
And what do you do for like those buildings that are on foundations? Is it similar?
It's usually about half of what it costs, or
Okay.
less, half or less. What'd you say, 12
12 by 14.
12 or 14, I'll give you with $500 to $1,000. Yeah, I know it's gonna cost you probably $2,500 or more for it, but it's, but you hope that cost.
This market.
Yeah, I was lumber cost today, you know,
Yeah.
so then
Well-
5%.
You hope that cost has been covered up under the price of, the
Yeah,
increased
right.
price on the house. And that's what I tell everybody when they try to make an addition, they ask me what would bring value up. I said, an addition, any more here square footage, but do not do it if you're gonna sell your house within 3 or 4 months, cause you won't get 50 cents on the dollar on that addition. You have to stay in a year, 2 years and cover that cost.
Any other questions? There's a lot of other things that we want to discuss in regards to appraisals. I think we actually may do a follow-up class that we'll talk about appraisal addendums. And if you have had to dispute appraisals, what that looks like, and trying to figure out, we've had some unique situations come up, we might do kind of some scenario training on that. So if there's anything else you guys would like to see or have one you want to review, then we can do a follow-up appraisal class as well on that. Let me know what we're looking at, now we can figure out what did they do.
If you have another question, you've got my business card, so just call me.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
Thank y'all. Keg of beer now, right?
Next time,
We'll wait at 12 o'clock somewhere.
next time when my